What up, NBA fans? I'm Marshall Green from New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports, and I'm joined by my guy Patrick Seatman from the brand new channel, the Chicago Bulls Report. It's kind of been on a heater as of late.
Yeah, the Bulls fans, there's a lot of talk, especially around Zach LaVine. And then Marsh and I, we decided, most of the talk has been around LaVine and the New York Knicks. So we're going to kind of break everything down that we know around this. And I'm going to call it an imminent blockbuster trade between.
You're going that far.
That's where I'm going. My gut's telling me LaVine is going to be a Knick in the upcoming days, Marsh. And I know you've been pushing this bandwagon as well on the Knicks channel.
Look, I just think of all the guys that are available this summer, LaVine makes the most sense for the New York Knicks.
Yep.
We know the Knicks have been building and building and building to get to a point where they can make a trade for a superstar. Zach LaVine is not a superstar, but he is a star. And I think if you go and make a trade for LaVine, if you're the Knicks, you don't have to blow all of your assets in this trade, and you can still have enough resources left in the chamber to go make another trade. That's why I like the LaVine trade so much. And also, it'd be pretty cool if we had a Chat Sports trade go down, old Knicks, Bulls,
and
NBA draft night.
So we were kind of predicting tomorrow we're going to be live on the Knicks channel, and we're like, it's going to happen immediately when we go live on that Knicks channel. Like, I just know it's going to happen. But kind of setting the stage here for where we kind of land with this whole Zach LaVine Knicks saga. So two reports from a Knicks reporter and a Bulls reporter. It starts off from the Knicks side of things. Ian Begley said the Bulls and Knicks had trade discussions last season. Barrett or Randall would be in the deal, but the Bulls like Quickley, and we'll kind of dive into the Quickley part. And then Joe Crowley out of NBC Sports Chicago, he said the Bulls and the Knicks had LaVine trade talks, and the Bulls are aggressively trying to trade for a first-round pick. Turns out the Knicks have a lot of ammunition for the Bulls.
The Knicks have 10 tradable first-round picks right now that they can move. You can only go, I think, 7 or 8 years in advance. I do want to kind of clear it up a little bit. Cowley is saying that they had trade talks at the NBA trade deadline, and now he is saying the Bulls are aggressively trying to trade for a first-round pick. So a little bit, just trying to clear that up a little bit. But look, the Knicks don't have a pick. The Bulls want a pick in the first round. So we're going to talk about a potential 3-team trade that I think makes a lot of sense for all 3 teams involved. We'll break down this report from Ian Begley and also from the Chicago Bulls side of things. But first, make sure you guys subscribe to the channels. If you're watching this on the Chicago Bulls Report, subscribe. Caesar's been absolutely crushing it, getting videos for you guys every single day, and that's what we do also on New York Knicks Now. Subscribe to the channel and help us beat the Chicago Bulls. We're in a little bit of a sub-off right now.
Yeah.
I told Seeps, the Knicks Now crew, we're going to get more subs on this video.
And you know what I said? Even though we're the young pups, we're the young channel here at Chat Sports, Bulls fans, let's prove them wrong. Chicago, New York, 2 big markets going head-to-head. Let's see who comes out on top here. But this was kind of diving more in to the Bulls side of things from Daniel Greenberg. Obviously, you kind of said the Bulls are being active in trying to see if they can get a first-round pick in tomorrow's NBA draft, which is key, especially when we get to our little 3-team trade Marsh and I cooked up here. And then he said there has been growing momentum that the Bulls have been continuing to gauge the value of a Zach LaVine or a DeMar DeRozan and see what they would get on the market. And key words here. It started at the Bulls were kind of gauging the market. And then we've kind of seen over the past couple of days that they have been actually calling teams, not receiving calls. The Bulls have been the team that have been actually making the calls.
Which is incredible because, like you said, it was first they were making calls. Now they're taking calls. And now they're gauging the market. There's just been a lot of smoke around this situation, and you're obviously more tapped in with the Bulls. Does it just feel like it's time? Does it just feel like it's time to rip the Band-Aid off, try to get a first-round pick, recoup some of those assets that you lost in the Vucevic trade, and so stockpile some of those picks as their future picks are really complicated due to protections? Is now the time for Chicago to try to move on from the Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and sadly, the Lonzo Ball era?
Yeah, I just want the Bulls to have a sense of direction. Like I've said this on the channel multiple times. Like the Bulls are stuck in NBA purgatory, where they're not good enough to compete for NBA championships, but they're not bad enough to land a top pick. Where if the Bulls were bad enough this year, and you're able to get Wemby or Scoot or Brandon Miller, any of these top prospects in the draft, totally different situation. But the Bulls are stuck in that middle ground, and in my opinion, that's the worst spot to be in the NBA. Is that purgatory zone?
You want to have a direction. You want to have some you're going after right now. I don't think the Bulls know who and what they are, and I think it could be a good summer to get it done. Whereas the Knicks, they know where they are. They're a team that was 2 games away from the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to be tough to even get back to the second round this next year. And while I think it's not going to be the end of the world if the Knicks do run it back, sign a free agent or two with those 2 available exceptions they have, if they really want to make a push and capitalize on this Julius Randle contract, which is 2 more years, Jalen Brunson contract, which is 2 more years, both those guys are going to be $40 million players in a couple years. If they want to capitalize right now, it seems, not saying LaVine is the best fit, he just seems like the most attainable star at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And, this trade that we cooked up, we got 2 trades coming to you guys, but the first trade, it definitely kind of checks all the boxes that we were both talking about right there. This is a blockbuster one. Could you imagine getting this notification on your phone?
No.
It's draft day, and we see this come through. It would be the Bulls receiving Emmanuel Quickley, Derrick Rose. The Knicks would obviously accept that team option he has. And then a 2025 first-round pick from the Knicks, 2025 first-round pick from the Bucks that is top 3 protected. But then the Bulls would actually be able to pick tomorrow night on Thursday. They have that 26 overall pick from the Indiana Pacers. And Marsh, obviously the Knicks are getting LaVine, but you mentioned yesterday on Knicks about a potential Obi Toppin to Indiana trade.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz right now around Obi Toppin. Reports coming out from the New York Daily News that Obi was frustrated with his role this past year with the Knicks, and Steve Popper even wrote in his article that he thinks Obi Toppin wants to be traded. And we've heard back at the trade deadline that the Indiana Pacers were a team that was interested in Obi. And with them having pick number 26 as well as 29, could they be willing to sacrifice one of those picks in exchange for Obi? So Obi goes to Indy. The Indy 26 goes to the Bulls. The Knicks get Zach LaVine. 3-team trade. I honestly probably would accept this trade, but I would absolutely hate to see my man Emmanuel Quickley go.
Yeah, and this would be the focal point or the main piece that the Bulls would be getting. And, Marsh, obviously you watched every single Knicks game last year. Like, what could the Bulls fans expect from getting a guy like this?
Emmanuel Quickley is an energizer bunny on offense and defense. I think he's one of the most underrated defenders in the NBA. There were articles last year coming out from The Athletic via Fred Katz that said he was the anchor of this Knicks defense, the most vocal player on this Knicks defense, calling out plays before it happened. But he's also an electric scorer. Had his best season in the NBA, finished 2nd and 6th man of the year, was absolutely robbed by the NBA, that award going to Malcolm Brogdon.
Yep.
Quickly gave you 15 points per game this year, just under 4 assists. He's a great rebounding guard as well. He's really a do-it-all guard. I consider him more of an off-ball guard at the 2 spot. He's got a really long wingspan as well, but he can get it done as a point guard, and he was really efficient as well, 44% from the field and 37% from 3. There were people, even during the regular season, but we'll go back to the offseason, that the Knicks, they didn't want him to go out and sign Jalen Brunson. They wanted Emmanuel Quickley to be the point guard of the future.
Yeah, and obviously if the Bulls would make this move, Emmanuel Quickley, he would be the focal point of that offense from day one. Assuming the Bulls would move off LaVine, I would assume this would mean you're going to find a trade partner for DeMar DeRozan. You hope to maybe sign and trade Vooch, but maybe you could even keep him. But I would assume majority of the Bulls offense would be ran through Emmanuel Quickley. And his stats when he started last year, Marsh, I mean, you could make an argument. These are all-star numbers from him.
There's not a lot of people in this world that can give you 23 points per game, 5+ assists, 5+ rebounds, and 47% from the field and 40% from downtown. Emmanuel Quickley had so many just legendary moments in this season for the New York Knicks. Go back to that game against the Boston Celtics, albeit it was in the regular season. If you want to be that guy, we're talking regular season, we are. But the dude was sensational. He had 38 points in a game against Boston without Jalen Brunson, played 55 minutes as that game went to double overtime. The dude had, 6 games of over 30 points per game this year. The dude is an electric scorer. He's a great defender as well. He's a great teammate. He can shoot from 3. He can pull up. Got a little bit of Lou Williams in his game. Like if Lou Williams and Tyrese Maxey kind of came together, that's who Emmanuel Quickley is, because he's not the athletic threat that Maxey is, where he has that top speed and can get to the rim and throw it down, but he's got a great teardrop shot. He can ISO, he can score in the mid-range. He's a great player. And honestly, there's another guy on the Knicks that I would rather give up than Emmanuel Quickley. We'll talk about him around the corner.
Yeah, and my last kind of point with Quickley, the number one thing I love about him and watching a good amount of Knicks basketball this year, you can feel the dog.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned his rebounding. You mentioned his defensive intensity. Like, Emmanuel Quickley, like, we know the stereotypes about guards from Chicago. Like, they got that toughness. They got that grit. They play with a certain type of swagger. Like, Emmanuel Quickley feels like a kid who was born and raised in Chicago, and, like, he plays that certain style of guard that we've seen so much from the guards that just came out of Chicago. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Emmanuel Quickley.
He's a great player, man, and he's a worker. Tom
Yes.
Thibodeau talks about it time and time again. He leads the crew of people for Knicks players that come to the facility at nighttime and just get shots up even after games. I love Emmanuel Quickley. I don't want to trade him, but I do know the price of doing business. I have a trade idea that I know Seeps may not be the biggest fan of coming up in a second, but let's focus on this one. Who wins this trade? If this trade were to go down on NBA draft night, who would be the winner? Is it the Bulls? Is it the Knicks? Type NYK if you think they're the big winners because they get the biggest star in this trade. Or is it Chicago because they get the second sixth man of the year? You get 3 first-round picks. And you get to bring back your very own in Derrick Rose. Let me know what you think down below. And remember to subscribe to not only New York Knicks Now and the Chicago Bulls Report, but also the mothership of Chat Sports, our main Chat Sports channel of almost 400,000 subs. They are going to be live for every single pick of the NBA draft. And if a LaVine trade goes down, it's going to be going crazy on the program. So subscribe and turn your notifications on and join us over on Chat Sports.
And this is the trade you cooked up, Marsh.
This is the one that I would like to do. I think R.J. Barrett is a better player than Emmanuel Quickley. I think R.J. Barrett probably has a higher ceiling than Emmanuel Quickley. But if I am the New York Knicks, I would rather move R.J. Barrett in a deal for Zach LaVine than Emmanuel Quickley. And my thought process there is if Jalen Brunson is going to be your starting point guard and Zach LaVine is going to be your starting 2 guard, you need a 3 that is a catch-and-shoot player that is also a defender. And luckily for the Knicks, they have a guy like that in Quentin Grimes. A little bit undersized to play the small forward spot, but he drew the number 1 assignment of every score the Knicks played. So I don't have a problem with Quentin Grimes guarding small forwards, considering he also did a really good job against Jimmy Butler in that playoff series. This would have the Knicks getting Zach LaVine. Unfortunately, our young, really executed player in R.J. Barrett that we drafted, our homegrown talent, leaving. That stinks. But at the end of the day, you give up RJ, salary filler at Evan Fournier. The Bulls still get those same 3 picks, but I'm pretty much just swapping out RJ for Emmanuel Quickley. And if you want Derrick Rose instead of Evan Fournier, we could do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of this trade as well for the Bulls. I would rather go Emmanuel Quickley than RJ Barrett. I do agree. I do think Barrett is a better player, but from the Bulls side of things, like, if you're getting a kid who's 23 years old and just came off averaging 20 points a game in the playoffs, like, even though we all have our thoughts on R.J. Barrett, like, he still is a high upside, I would say, still guy.
I would say so. Bobby Marks said in an interview that when you look back at all the extensions that were offered, non-max extensions, he talked about Jordan Poole, he talked about Tyler Hero, and he talked about Anthony Simons and R.J. Barrett. I mean, he's an NBA insider, Bobby Marks, and he said R.J. Barrett has the most trade value amongst those guys. If you look, obviously we're being really nitpicky here.
Yeah.
R.J. Barrett, he played in 11 postseason games. If you take out the first 2 against the Cleveland Cavaliers and you take out the last one against Miami in Game 6 where he didn't show up, there's an 8-game stretch right there in the playoffs where R.J. Barrett averaged 22.5 points per game, and he did it on 49% from the field and 38% from downtown on 6 3-pointers a night, and he just turned 23 years old. I see the potential with RJ, but if the Knicks are going to keep Julius Randle, I think RJ has to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, because then if you do keep, obviously, Randle, like, RJ being a 4th option, like, I don't know how, like.
You need someone that does the little things when you get to that 4th option.
Yeah, like, I don't know if RJ would really excel in that kind of role, but I mean, if RJ would ever develop a consistent mid-range game, like, I think he could legitimately be a 23, 24 game guy in the NBA.
Yeah, and he improved his scoring he improved his efficiency around the rim. The 3-point shot percentage-wise took a step back, but look, that's 8 games in a row in the playoffs where the kid averaged 38% from downtown on almost 7 attempts per game. He's no scrub. He'd give you a young core piece to build around, 3 first-round picks. Now, if you're a Bulls fan, you're looking at R.J. Barrett, Patrick Williams, and your boy Ayo DeSumo and 3 first-round picks as you try to rebuild it. And
that, overall, my side, Bulls, you get a sense of direction. That's why I like both these trades no matter what. We could kind of end today's show, Marsh. I think we're both on the same boat here. Zach LaVine, I feel like he's became almost criminally underrated this offseason. I know Knicks fans might be saying, like, oh, why would we give up Quickley, Barrett for a guy like Zach LaVine? Like, Marsh and I are kind of in the same boat. We almost think Zach LaVine has become underrated.
I agree. I think there's just a negative connotation with the name Zach LaVine because you can tell the story of the NBA without telling anything about Zach LaVine except for a couple of NBA dunk titles. Like, he's been in the playoffs one time. He's only been on a winning team a couple of times. You know what that tells me? He's not a number one option, and that's okay. There's not a lot of number one options in the NBA, but if you're telling me, as a Knicks fan, I'm getting Zach LaVine, a 25-point-per-game scorer, next to Jalen Brunson that shoots 48.5% from the deck, 37.5% from downtown, which is the lowest percentage in the last 4 years. He's really a 38-40% shooter.
Yep.
He's the closest thing you're getting to a 50-40-90 guy in the NBA. And I think the talk of he's an injury-prone player, that's just a lame, bogus take. He's played in 85% of games in the last 5 seasons. We'll talk about the contract in a little bit, but the reason I think he's such a great fit next to the Knicks is when you talk about the Knicks, why were they unable to beat the Heat? They weren't able to make outside shots, and no one could handle, create, and make moves as a ball handler for the New York Knicks outside of Jalen Brunson. Well, you're fixing the catch-and-shoot problem. 41.6% for Zach LaVine from downtown on catch-and-shoot scenarios. He's also an elite self-creating shot taker from beyond the arc, 34% on pull-up shots. And he's one of the best players in the NBA from the foul line down, 62% on field goals less than 10%. He's an elite offensive player, and I was actually watching the highlights last night of his game against Toronto in that play-in game. 12 of 22 from the field, 40 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He's an elite offensive player, and I don't think I'm overstating that.
And I don't think we've seen his potential defensively kind of fully tapped because remember back when he played with Team USA and you were able to kind of, obviously it's international rules, you're able to get up in their face, you're able to use the hand check. And obviously LaVine's playing around a much better kind of scores around him, so he doesn't need to carry the offensive load. We saw him take his defensive game to the next level. So I'm not saying LaVine is a top defender in the league by any means, but I believe if Tom Thibodeau gave him an assignment during a playoff series and said, this is what you need to do, this is how you're going to accomplish it, LaVine has the athletic ability to do it, and I think that's the number one thing. If you go to the Knicks, I think we could see that side of LaVine's game kind of untapped a little bit. And Marsh, how sweet would he look
He looks
in the
great.
Knicks uniform?
He looks great. I almost want him to wear number 14. Shout out to Mason, his UCLA number. But I know some people are going to say, but what about the defense? Zach LaVine is a better defender by almost every single metric than R.J. Barrett. So I'm not worried about the defense side of things. And some people say, is he a Tom Thibodeau guy? Well, in April of 2021, Tom Thibodeau said this about Zach LaVine. He said, he's a hard worker. He's a gym rat. He's gotten better every year. So I'm not surprised that he's had the success that he's had. It's unfortunate being in the health and safety protocol. He was dealing with COVID symptoms at that time, but he has had a terrific season. Remember, Tom Thibodeau, according to reports last summer, was in favor of trading R.J. Barrett for Donovan Mitchell. And I'm going to ask you a question right now, Seeps. Better offensive player, Donovan Mitchell or Zach LaVine?
I'd probably go LaVine. I think very similar players because they're both hyper-athletic guys that can score from all 3 levels, but that's a tough one. I mean, obviously you're talking very minuscule kind of differences between them, but I'd probably go LaVine.
I think LaVine's a better off-ball player, and I think he gets downhill a little bit more.
And I think we've seen Donovan Mitchell. He's got some Westbrook in his game a little bit. We saw it in the playoffs as well.
I think a 1 and 2 of Brunson and LaVine would be awesome because LaVine, he's also averaged over 5 assists a couple times in his career. He's someone that can handle the rock, play make for others. I don't know if there's a better partner on the market that the Knicks can trade for right now. I don't see it.
And honestly, the contract, like compared to these other guys in the NBA, like we've been looking at the Beal deal, we've been looking at the Karl Anthony Towns deal. This is just what it costs to get a secondary scoring option in the league now. It's going to cost you around 30, 40, $45, $48 million a year.
He is the fourth highest paid shooting guard in the NBA, and he's got Devin Booker, C.J. McCollum, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell right below it. I mean, think about it like this. Jordan Poole is being paid $27.9 million. Tyler Hero's getting paid $27 million. Are we saying that Zach LaVine's not $13 million better than those guys? Because he absolutely is. This is the cost of doing business. Someone responded to me on Twitter, and I thought they made a good point. They said Zach LaVine's a star, and this is a superstar contract. That's a fair point to make, but he's not even the highest, second or third highest paid shooting guard in the NBA. So this is just what it costs to get a player of Zach LaVine's level.
And obviously when Jamal Murray gets extended, he's going to make more than this. And I think LaVine, Murray, like Mitchell, those types of dudes, Beal, like they're all relatively on the same level. But if you want to get a secondary or a second scoring option in the league, this is just what it goes for. But we'll ask you guys this in the NBA. Zach LaVine is a top blank player in the NBA. My initial thought that came up to me was 20. I think that's fair for LaVine, but I don't know, Marsh, where would you have him just overall?
So I'm looking up this list from The Ringer that came out a couple of days ago, and I want to see where they had Zach LaVine before I make my take. They had Zach LaVine as the 47th ranked player in the NBA. I think that's a little bit low.
Yeah,
that's only one spot below Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins. They actually have him ranked worse than Julius Randle. I don't agree with that. I would put LaVine as a top 30 player in the NBA, and I think that's a fair statement. You could put him at 20 or 30. You could make an argument for anybody. I mean, you can't, like Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, who's better? They have DeMar DeRozan better than Zach LaVine. So I don't necessarily agree with these rankings. I'd go top 30. I think he's if there was an NBA redraft, Zach LaVine would probably be a first-round pick.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely. That's insane. The Ringer had him at 47. That's embarrassing.
So I want to ask you this question before we bounce out of here. Why should the Chicago Bulls trade Zach LaVine? Or do they have to? What do you think? Final thoughts.
My initial, it's just to get a sense of direction. I've been saying it. Like, even if you're not, like, the happiest with the trade package they get, and that trade, you get the details on Thursday night or Thursday during the day, and you're like, wow, we really didn't get as much as I was expecting. At least you have a direction. Like, that's the number one reason why I think the Bulls, because clearly you're not going to win a championship with this core. Move on, get a sense of direction. That would be my number one reason. What about for you? Number one reason to get LaVine?
I think he's the most attainable star right now, and I think that it doesn't make you use all of your assets, and you're still in a good spot to make another trade. And who's to say that in 3 years the Knicks don't flip Zach LaVine for a superstar?
Yeah.
It's not like they're stuck with this guy forever. He does not have a no-trade clause. I think the Knicks, they need another scorer in the backcourt, a guy that can hit a jump shot consistently. I think it's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. So.
I think the Knicks get better because of it. I think if you run back the East and the Knicks make a trade for LaVine, and let's say it's RJ and the fillers in the cap, and your starting lineup is Jalen Brunson, Zach LaVine, Quentin Grimes, or Josh Hart. Because I think if LaVine's on the Knicks, Josh Hart could slide into that small forward role, be guy that bigger defender at the small forward spot. Then Grimes comes in as your shooter. I think you're in the same class I think you're in the elite class. I think you're just as good as the Heat. You can compete against the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think you're in that class. And
the thing I love about it from the Knicks' perspective, talk about the backcourt, like the four guards of Brunson, LaVine, Hart, and Grimes. You got the Hart and Grimes combo. They're the gritty. They're the defenders. Yeah. They're the connective pieces offensively. And then you got the Brunson and LaVine where it's like the superstar talent. Like, I think they would mesh very well.
There just needs to be a talent upgrade. If the Bulls don't trade LaVine, what avenue do you expect them to take?
If they don't trade LaVine, I do still expect them to move off DeMar DeRozan. But if they keep LaVine, don't rule out a trade deadline move. I still think the Bulls could look at that record post All-Star break and be like, we can run it back, retool the roster a little bit, and then maybe ship him at the trade deadline. But I'm kind of in the camp that he's going to get dealt in the next 24 hours.
It's going to be interesting for sure. So make sure you guys are subscribed and have your notifications turned on to the Knicks and Bulls Report. And if you're a Knicks fan and you're a fan of Seeps, go subscribe over there. And if you want more videos, we're doing two-man videos, hit that thumbs up icon, let us know, and we'll see you later.
Peace.